Welcome back. We are on our last segment of the show. Our time really does go fast, or fly by when you're having fun. I forgot what the expression goes like. But I will be joined by Michale Atkins. South Africa is fast moving towards our elections on the 29th of May. And we've seen so many new entrants. There's around, 360 political parties registered with the IEC. And the bulk of those are going to be on your ballot box come the 29th of May. Michale, thank you so much for joining us on Salam Media, and welcome.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah. I've been talking about, just the sheer amount of political parties we have in this country. Before we get into the core of our discussion, where we analyze, the new smaller or new entrants into the political sphere of South African politics. 360 political parties. You can look at what many would call thriving democracies around the world. They have two or four political parties at most. We have 360. Is this a sign of a healthy democracy, or it's something that we should be concerned about?
Well, the picture's not quite as bad as it sounds. We've actually always had that kind of number of registered parties, but like with previous elections, we only get a much smaller number actually contesting the elections. So, for example, in the National Assembly, we have 52 parties contesting the main National Assembly. That's up from 48 in the 2019 election. And in total, if you count all of the provincial legislatures in the National Assembly, we only have a total of 70 parties overall. Some are contesting one province or a couple of provinces only. So, yes, there are quite a lot, but it's not as bad as it sounds. And in part, the new parties or the small parties are a healthy sign of our democracy. We are a very diverse society, and it means that people can start with very little and actually make their way. And if they prove themselves, they can grow. We have a few parties with a serious prospect of gaining seats in the National Assembly who maybe have contested elections before and not had a lot of success, or who have contested local government elections and are now on the national stage as well.
I think I want us to get to the core of our discussion there, and I want us to touch on a few smaller or new entrances into the upcoming elections, particularly Rise Mzansi, Bosa by Musi Maimani, and also the South African Rainbow Alliance. And just to first touch on Rise Mzansi. They say they have 6 focus areas to keep people safe. One, to build an economy that creates jobs, to put food on the tables of families and communities. I can go on and on. But what do you make of them? They've been making quite a noise. Yesterday they were in Gauteng launching their manifesto here. They are seemingly one of those parties that you're talking about that could maybe garner a seat or two after the votes have been counted on the upcoming elections on the 29th of May.
Well, what we find from past elections as well is that publicity and certainly social media are not a good indication or platform for a party to succeed. What really matters for political parties is the organizational structures they have, the feet they have on the ground. Now, what we can see with Rise Mzansi is they do have a solid organizational structure. And this is not to prefer them or to anything else. This is looking on analytically that they've got very thorough work on policies. They've worked very hard in building their structures. And so they have the ingredients for success for a political party. I can't comment on how well their message will go down with the electorate, but they do have a lot of activists working. They've obviously had a very visible poster campaign. So they of the new parties do stand a reasonable prospect of certainly they would hope to gain more than one, a couple of seats. That they have done the hard work over the last year, 18 months to do the sort of background preparation for these elections.
And looking at their leader also, Mr. Zibi, no track record when it comes to government. He's been in the private sector for the longest of times. What do you think generally, the average South African voter thinks about that, where you have someone that doesn't have quote unquote struggle credentials, making a ferry into politics and wanting to take positions of leadership? Is there an acceptance of that, or the ANC has set a benchmark that to be a leader, to be someone who can be taken seriously and be given a prominent position, you must have those quote unquote struggle credentials? Are we accepting people that come from the private sector into politics? Have we seen examples of success stories of people like that?
Look, your question is a good one. We don't yet have a situation where people from the outside come into politics and make a success. Of course, the other example, if you want to do it, is Mr. Mashaba, who he might be a controversial figure in some circles, but he certainly made an impact as mayor of Johannesburg. And again, Action SA are another party that have built very solid structures. So they have done the hard work for quite a long time. But Mr. Mashaba is perhaps the one example of somebody who's come from the private sector and has performed well in the political sphere. If going back to Mr. Zibi, I can't predict how the voters will respond to him, but he is certainly a very considered and thoughtful leader. He did publish a book, Manifesto, where he set out, you can agree or disagree with his views and his policies and his politics, but he set out a vision for what South Africa should become. So it's almost impossible to predict how the election will go, but certainly they have the ingredients to make that a success. But in the end, obviously, it's up to the voters to make that final decision.
I want us to touch on another political party, the Umkhonto we Sizwe there. Very, very different from the party that we just spoke about, Rise Mzansi. I'm sure even their constituency, the people that they're making noise to, are very, very different from what the Rise Mzansi would be speaking to, and maybe a whole bulk of other political parties, apart maybe from the ANC. They've had their back and forth, with the ANC in court. They've had their back and forth with the IEC also. What can we make of them? Obviously, having former President Jacob Zuma there as essentially their poster boy. Even though he might not, even if they win the elections, he won't be the party leader. What can we deduce of them? They are also coming in for the first time into the ballot paper.
Well, in essence, MK are the third large split away from the ANC. So I'm not counting UDM in the mid-90s. They were they were a medium split. So we had COPE in 2009, the EFF in 2014, and now MK. Now, COPE debuted with, I think, 29 MPs. Mm-hmm. And the EFF debuted with 25, if I recall, in 2014. So certainly Mr. Zuma is one of the most prominent figures. Under his leadership of the ANC vote in KZN grew in 2009 and 2014, where their votes fell in every other province. So it would be surprising if MK did not draw a noticeable number, and I use my words very carefully because we don't make exact predictions, but we would expect them to draw a noticeable number of voters away from the ANC. But also, MK is positioned to draw votes from people who are not necessarily ANC voters, but are very unhappy with the direction that the country and the ANC has taken over the past 5 years. So potentially MK gets some votes from the EFF. That might be a controversial view, and the EFF might disagree with me. There are some who are saying that MK could attract some IFP votes from KZN. And certainly Mr. Zuma has enjoyed very strong support in KZN. If we look at the last two ANC conferences in 2017 and 2022, the KZN delegation, if you like, to those conferences was quite split down the middle on the pro-Zuma, if you want to put it that way, faction and the anti-Zuma faction, if you want to use those terms. So certainly they have a large pool of voters to draw from, and we can be sure in KwaZulu-Natal, they also have people on the ground with structures to organize to go and campaign. So they do have a lot of the ingredients, as well as the publicity that they've been getting from these court battles. So yes, we would expect them to make a splash in terms of the election results at the end.
I want us to take a quick break, but when we come back, maybe you can even think about the response while we're on the break, is their election strategy, the MK that is, very militant, very almost challenging every kind of authority that we have and the systems that are in place, especially the IEC and using all kinds of language. Is this a strategy that resonates with their target voters? I mean, we've seen the EFF when they started and how they've maintained it throughout, where you're militant, you're challenging authority, and you're using very language that's very inducing, of certain feelings from the voters. So I want us to touch a bit on that, their strategies and how they've been going about their campaigning. But we'll touch on that after the break.
Sure.
Shimmer, sparkle, captivate. Nothing less than a masterpiece. Droplets of gold inspires precious design. Platinum bursts with intricate freshness, and every pure diamond becomes more than just a girl's best friend. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, where timeless dreams become a reality. Come to us. We tailor-make designer gold, platinum, and diamond jewelry. Trade in or remodel your old gold. Clad yourself with classy name-branded watches. We offer insurance valuation and freezer card calculation. Visit us at 534 Ridge Road, Overport, or call 031 208 9142. Voda Gold Gem Jewelers, manufacturers of fine gold and diamond jewelry.
The people of Palestine need your support now. Africa Muslims Agency is on the ground, already providing food, medication, and emergency supplies in Gaza. Donate any amount to Heal Palestine at africamuslimsagency.co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, empowering, educating, inspiring.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Are you ready for a journey of spiritual significance? Join Khidmatul Awam Pilgrim Services for an unforgettable Umrah experience during Dhul Qa'dah. Walk in the footsteps of the Hujjaj, guided by esteemed scholars Mulana Dawood Samson and Mulana Muhammad Silaji. Our Dhul Qa'dah package departs on May 10th and returns on May 25th via Egypt Air out of Johannesburg. Experience 9 nights in the blessed city of Medina and 5 nights in the sacred city of Mecca, with packages starting from just 27,500 rands. Enjoy a fully guided tour, including Umrah visa, Jumu'ah prayers in both harams, seamless transfers, and enriching ziyarats. Feel free to visit our offices nationwide and speak to our knowledgeable consultants, or simply contact us at 010-6005-786. Hikmatul Awam Pilgrim Services, your pathway to a blessed journey.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge, your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists, with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities, conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041-583-6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. We're still chatting to Michale Atkins, independent election analyst there, and we're just going over some of the new entries into the upcoming elections that want to woo you and want your vote. And before we went on the break, Michale, we were chatting a bit about Umkhonto weSizwe there and their campaigning strategies, and just how militant and how aggressive they've become. What are your thoughts on that? The kind of language and rhetoric that they keep throwing around. Is it something that works for the constituency that they want to attract, and why does it resonate so much? The language that they use, which is very violent and very inducing. Why does it resonate so much with people?
Yes, in any election environment, and this you'll find in countries across the world, a certain portion of the electorate will respond to provocative messaging and provocative language. As a resident of KwaZulu-Natal, I remember many years ago, Mr. Rajbanzi enjoyed a lot of support among residents because he had a particular style of just speaking his mind and being provocative. And we see it in part with Mr. Trump in the United States and in various other places. So one could look at it as a number of people are frustrated with the status quo or with their own circumstances. And if voters feel that here is somebody strong who can use strong language, so use language that people might use over a drink or around a braai or whatever the case might be, rather than in polite circles, that a lot of people might identify with that kind of language. Obviously, as a tactic, and will it be successful, it's hard to be seen, because there could be a natural limit in society as to how many people will respond to that kind of language. And obviously, we know that MK and some of their spokespeople have been pushing the boundaries of what is allowed and permitted in terms of the law. We had Mr. Viswan Reddy has been charged for some of his inflammatory statements. So, yes, it attracts attention. It gets a lot of publicity. And it's not surprising that there is part of the electorate that responds on a personal level to that kind of talk. But obviously, again, we have to see the electorate have the final say, and only after we see the results will we know how successful the tactics have been.
Mm, mm. Another party that I want, us to touch on is SARA, South African Rainbow Alliance. They say they are, a pact comprising of like-minded minority parties, civic organizations, churches, and faith-based organizations across South Africa. For the longest of time, South Africa, civic and civil organizations have come to the rescue of of South Africa in numerous issues, especially when it comes to holding corrupt people accountable. You can name them. They were involved in the Gupta scandal. Outa was very involved in the issue of the roads, and we've always thought, are we ever going to see civic and civil organizations organizing and becoming political parties, because they seem to get things done in a lot of ways? Would SARA be an example of that, obviously led by Colleen Makubela, former speaker of Gauteng? What can you deduce from them? Are they what we've always been, seeing emergence of when civil society organizes organizations like that become political parties and make a ferry towards, contesting the elections?
Look, you're correct. In general, a lot of civil society bodies are becoming more involved, and as an overall idea, I would view that as a positive step. It's difficult to judge with SARA how well they will translate that grouping of civil society into votes. I won't sort of speak negatively or try and favor any one party or another. The question that needs to be answered is the leaders of the particular groups that have been talking together, the church groups and other civil society groups. The question is whether their involvement translates into voting support from their members. So we have had in the past, for example, another form of civil society. We've had figures in the union movements, where in the unions there are very large numbers of members, but the actual number of votes was perhaps a little disappointing in the final analysis. So the challenge that SARA has is converting the sort of recognition of their leader and the publicity that the leader has enjoyed, and converting the buy-in of the various organizations' leadership structures, converting those into votes is the challenge that SARA will have to overcome. And again, that's a question that we simply don't know the answer to. And it would need a more detailed study of the particular organizations, of the issues that those organizations appeal to, and whether there are any other parties that have, for example, a stronger appeal on those particular topics.
And looking at their leader also, Colleen Makubela, this formerly with COPE. She was also speaker of the City of Johannesburg Council. Political parties that have had female leadership, from your observance in all the recent elections, how have they fared, having a female leader that's strong, that's seemingly in control of things, and not just being given an opportunity to be in the front as a quota deployment, if you can put it that way?
Look, one can comment, we have not seen enough female leaders taking up the reins in South African politics. That's very clear. There are some sort of examples where that are not true. Obviously, Patricia de Lille has played a significant role in South African politics over many years. Even without a large electoral support, her presence and role has been notable, and she has made a contribution to our politics going back into the 90s. I don't know, and I can't judge whether South Africa is ready to put their trust in a female leader. Now, this is a controversial sort of topic, if you like. We are still quite a patriarchal society, and I think there could still be quite a lot of resistance on a large scale. But this is also true in a lot of countries around the world. And that is unfortunate, where particular people are not given enough opportunity to make their mark. So it is a difficult question to answer. I don't see, for example, with Sarah, that they will particularly gain votes because of having a female as a leader. To my mind, if you have somebody who's competent and outspoken and a strong person, it's a good sign if a woman can occupy that role and do those things. But I don't see that being a draw card on its own right. It'll be up to the other issues that will decide voters' minds.
There are a lot of other parties that I wish we could touch on, but unfortunately we have run out of time. But before I let you go, Michael, there's 43 days before the elections, the 29th of May. If you can just sum it up, how we're looking, looking at the smaller parties. Also, if you can just have, a parting word on, our road leading up to the elections, and also how they fared when it comes to their campaigning, less than 43 days before we go to the polls.
Well, quite a number of the smaller parties that we're seeing on the national stage for the first time have actually cut their teeth in local government elections. So we could get some surprises coming through. You get smaller parties like UIM, which have a footprint in the Western Cape. Africa Restoration Alliance have participated in local government elections, and they are contesting across the board. Obviously, a party like the Patriotic Alliance has been around for a long time, and they are likely to get a lot more prominence than they have in the past. So we shouldn't be surprised to see some of these smaller parties playing quite a big role, particularly if there are coalition negotiations in some of the provinces or even the National Assembly.
What's the likelihood of that, of a coalition government, nationally? Is it something that we can keep at the back of our minds and say it's a very big possibility that it might happen?
People have been talking about it for quite a long time and looking at the trends, but in particular, the emergence of MK and how many votes they split away from the ANC, that certainly increases the probability substantially. So that's definitely something to watch. I think this result is far more variable and unpredictable than any we've had at any point before.
I think we're going to leave it there, Michael. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll be keeping in touch with you as we, make that ferry to the elections. The days keep coming so quickly. It feels like it's going to be in the next couple of days. But very, very exciting times. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope to touch base with you soon.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it there, Michale Atkins, independent elections analyst. They're painting a picture for us about, some of the new entrances into the ballot paper leading up to the 29th of May, the elections. We touched a bit on the South African Rainbow Alliance, Umkhonto weSizwe, Rise Mzansi also. These are some of the parties that are seeming to be making the right noises and might be kingmakers if, that coalition, government does come into play, and you need those smaller parties or new entrances to kind of sway, the direction of how they would want the next leadership to look like. We're going to leave it here. A very, very interesting show that we've had. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Wonderful, 2 hours. I'd like to thank Kolani there, the man behind the controls, making sure that I sound crisp and I look perfect coming to you, and also Nasrin Naidu, who's a co-producer of the show along with myself. But we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much. Salamu alaikum. See you next time.